Welcome back to the Data Crunch podcast. I'm Vadym, Growth Marketing Manager here at OWAX, and today we're tackling a crucial topic: common mistakes in data analysis and how to avoid them. Businesses rely heavily on data to make decisions, but what happens when the analysis itself is flawed? That's what we're diving into today. As always, I'm joined by Ievgen, our head of marketing at OWAX, to help us understand this. Hey Ievgen, are you ready to explore some data pitfalls today?
Hey Vadym, nice to be here today, and sure, I'm ready to rock. So, data analytics is powerful, but only if done right. So, even experienced analysts make mistakes. The same as marketers make mistakes, finance people make mistakes, and CEOs make mistakes as well. Sometimes those mistakes are small, sometimes they are massive. And these errors that the data folks do, they can lead to bad business decisions, wrong decisions, right? So wasted resources and, more importantly, lost revenue. But the good news is that most mistakes can be actually avoided by following the best practices that are already available. So today I want to discuss the most common pitfalls and how businesses and the data analysts can overcome their data strategy, their data processes, their frameworks, and tools they use to extract the real, actionable insights from the data, but also to minimize the number of mistakes.
All right, yeah, that's what we're here for. So let's start with the first mistake. What's the number one, the biggest way data analysis can go wrong?
One of the most fundamental mistakes is jumping into data analysis, without understanding the clear business goals. Without a defined objective of that analysis, you're just digging through numbers without knowing what you're looking for. Like, which questions should business ask to reach those goals? Which metrics should you measure to answer those questions to reach the business goals? So let me give you an example. A SaaS company might want to improve the user onboarding. And instead of pulling random data points, here is what they should do first. Number one, define the exact pain points in the onboarding process. Like, map out the funnel. Understand if there is actually a funnel or that more looks like a website. Number two, identify metrics that measure success, like user drop-off rates at each stage of that funnel that you have already defined on the previous step. Most likely, it's now time to add some more measurements to that funnel, because without the process I've just described, chances are you are not tracking every step of that funnel. And only now, it's time to use the data collected to build a report, to visualize the step of the funnels, the drop-off rates, put all the metrics down and some cohorts maybe as well. And only then go and optimize the onboarding steps and improve the user experience. So without understanding the clear goals as the first point, data analytics turns into guesswork. Like, you think you're looking at numbers, you're building reports, but at the same time, without the goals, it's just nothing. So that more likely leads to confusion instead of getting the insights to drive growth. Like, you should understand what you are analyzing and what the goals are.
Yes, that's a great point, Ievgen. I think a lot of businesses make the mistake of collecting data for the sake of it instead of asking, what are we trying to achieve here? Without that direction, you're just staring at numbers without real plan, with no real plan.
Exactly. And even when businesses do set goals, well, sometimes they still fail at analytics because there are more critical steps here. And the next big problem is querying raw data, like using unprocessed, messy, basically just raw data in the actual analysis. So look, raw data often has errors, duplicates, missing values, inconsistencies. That happens. And that's okay, because that's the essence of the raw data. But if you don't clean it properly and start using it inside the analysis, your analysis is doomed before it even starts. So I would like to go over the best practices here for transforming those raw data into what we call business-ready data. So that steps include, number one, standardizing the formats, date formats, currency, units, etc. Number two, removing duplicates to prevent overcounting, because that's what we see all the time. Number three, storing data in the warehouse. Well, because data could be all over the place, ad platform, CRM, finance, whatever system. But if you don't put it together, you might find yourself struggling with understanding the data with those formats, types, etc. So modeling that data using the tools like AWOX would help to make each of the databases, each of the tables be connected, because the data should not be disconnected one from another. So we envision business-ready data as a database with tables or data marts that look like real-life objects like users, clients, visitors, products, offers, sessions, ad platforms, you name it. So those separate data marts, each of them specifying the object from the real life, and they are linked somehow. So the analyst that prepares those tables should also specify the join keys between those objects and the rules like 1 to n to n, n to 1. So what those keys and how to map it all together into a business data model.
Wow, Yevgen, yeah, that's huge. You might be looking at incorrect revenue numbers or missing customer details and you wouldn't even know about it. Modeling your data might be extra effort up front, but it saves time and prevents bad decisions in the long run.
Absolutely. When your data is modeled, even in UB, in data analytics, can then build reports based on the predefined structure of tables, objects, and join keys. But that brings us to another key mistake here, focusing on the wrong metrics. Not all data points are equally valuable. If your goal is to increase revenue, then focusing on metrics like social media engagement might not be the best use of your time. And if the business user sometimes knows this, the data analyst might not. That's not the job of the data analyst to be a marketer. But the job of the data analyst is to go and interview a marketer about this specific data point from his data that matter for a specific use case, like marketing use case or a finance use case. So in our case of increasing revenue, instead of analyzing social media engagement, businesses should prioritize the customer lifetime value, monthly recurring revenue, the churn rate, you name it. But it's definitely not the engagement on social media that leads to nowhere. So tracking vanity metrics might look awesome in reports, but they do not directly impact business growth, like website traffic, for example, or that social media engagement.
Yeah, totally agree again. It's easy to get caught up in numbers that don't really mean much for revenue or growth. And I think a simple rule of thumb here, if a metric isn't leading to an action, it's probably not worth tracking.
Yeah, that's the great way to put it. I like it. And speaking of misleading analysis, another major mistake is cherry-picking data, only selecting the numbers that support a specific narrative, or just the ones that you like, because they look great. This happens when both data teams and business users, like both, either ignore data that contradicts their assumptions, or manipulate the numbers to justify the business decision, or present only positive trends while hiding the negative ones. So, to avoid this, businesses need to analyze the full data and be open to insights, good or bad, even if they challenge expectations.
Yeah, I think the whole point of data is to discover the truth, not confirm assumptions. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And another big issue is ignoring outliers instead of investigating them. Because outliers can reveal a lot of things, like high-value customers that are worth analyzing, or the fraud transactions that just need deeper investigation, plus hidden trends. So instead of automatically removing the outliers from the analysis, use visualization techniques like box plots or scatter plots to explore them further.
Yeah, I love that. It looks like instead of ignoring outliers, we need to ask why they exist.
Oh, that's great. But that leads us to another big mistake: bad data visualization. Because even the best insights are useless if stakeholders cannot use them or cannot understand them. Look, I'm not talking about dashboards look fancy or some specific design. No, not at all. What I'm talking here about is, for example, using the wrong type of chart, like using the pie chart for some time series trends, or overloading dashboards with too many of the metrics and dimensions, or basically when you name the fields or charts data without context, so nobody understands what the data is showing. So a good practice here is to keep visuals super simple, straightforward, and easy to interpret. That's why I love using Google Sheets as the visualization tool, rather than Tableau, Power BI, or Looker Studio.
Yeah, Evgen, I couldn't agree more here with you. So good data visualization should be like storytelling. It should guide people to the right insights quickly.
So another common mistake here is confusing correlation with causation. Just because two things are related doesn't mean one is causing another one. For example, let's say an e-commerce company notices that the customers who buy high-end laptops also tend to purchase expensive headphones. Does that mean that laptops cause headphone sales? Or the other way around? Well, not necessarily. It could be just that people who buy premium tech have a bigger budget and more likely to buy both items.
Yeah, that's such an easy trap to fall into. It reminds me of those studies where people say eating ice cream is linked to an increase of drowning deaths. But in reality, both happen more often in the summer. They're correlated, but one doesn't cause the other.
Yeah, that's absurd. Like, eating cucumbers causes death. Well, just because all of us eat cucumbers and we all would die one day. Yes, that happens, but that doesn't mean that cucumbers causes death. But that leads me to another mistake: comparing business data with their own benchmarks. Let's say you're a small e-commerce store and you want to compare your conversion rate of, let's say, 8% to the Amazon's one. That's not a fair comparison. Amazon has massive brand trust, Prime memberships, and global distribution. Do you have the same? Well, I bet you don't. Instead, you should compare your conversion rate to a similar sized business in your industry.
Yeah, I think using the wrong benchmarks can really skew your perspective.
The key takeaway here is to use relevant, industry-specific benchmarks to get a realistic picture of performance.
Great. Any other data analytics mistakes you can think of?
Another major issue. Well, let me think. Let's talk about the data formats. So, not standardizing the data formats. Data comes from multiple sources: spreadsheets, CRM, marketing tools, cloud databases, data warehouses. And if it's formatted inconsistently, you will get errors, duplicate values, and misleading insights. So, for example, one dataset records sales amounts in dollars because that happens in the US, while another records them in euro because the sales happened in Europe. So without a standard currency conversion, your revenue calculations will be wrong, and they would be different in different days. So dates formatted as month, day, year, or date, month, year in another can lead to misaligned reports.
Yeah, I agree. If your definitions aren't aligned, your reports are useless. So yeah, standardizing data ensures consistency across all reports and tools.
So to prevent these mistakes, businesses need to standardize their data processes. So this means defining clear guidelines for data collection and formatting, creating consistent naming convention for the metrics, for the fields, for the date fields, and basically automating all this process. Plus, it's way easier to fix this when you store data in one place, like a data warehouse. That's the right place to make the standardization happen through your data transformations.
Yeah, I agree. That's key. Standardization ensures everyone in the company is on the same page.
Exactly. And I think I have one more mistake here, and that's speed. Look, accuracy should always come before speed. Rushing through analysis can lead to costly mistakes, very costly mistakes. So businesses should double check their findings and have a second pair of eyes reviewing the data. And that's what we see now a lot in the age of AI. When businesses heavily rely on AI tools that inspect their data, please understand me correctly. AI is great. And in 95% of cases, AI analysis would be quick and reliable. But if you make decisions based on the other 5% of answers, you will quickly run out of business.
Yeah, Ievgen, speed is great, but as we know, bad decisions made quickly are definitely worse than good decisions made slowly. Anyway, this has been an incredibly insightful conversation, Ievgen. If you wanted to highlight the key mistakes our listeners should pay attention to, what would those be?
Number 1, set clear goals before analyzing data. Number 2, ensure data is clean and formatted properly. Number 3, track only meaningful metrics, not the vanity ones. Number 4, investigate outliers rather than ignoring them. Always use automation to reduce the number of manual mistakes. And don't forget to work more closely with business users on all of this.
That's awesome, Ievgen. For all our listeners, if you want to avoid crucial mistakes in your data analysis process, make sure to check AWACS for smarter data analytics. Just visit our website, awacs.com, and start analyzing your data for free today. And don't forget to subscribe to the Data Crunch podcast for more exciting and insightful topics.
Thanks for having me here today. Stay data-driven, stay accurate, and we'll see you in the next episode.